When my husband returned triumphant from battle, he brought back a pregnant woman from another world. He had her stay in my courtyard and sleep in my bed. Later, she suffered complications with her pregnancy, and no treatment could help her. She said, "I have a secret remedy that can ensure the baby's safety, but it requires a special ingredient. That ingredient is the blood of a fetus from another pregnant woman." To save her child, my husband personally forced me to drink an abortifacient, then slowly tortured me to death. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn on the very day he returned victorious. Before anyone could speak, I stepped forward and said, "General, you've been away at war for 3 years. While you were gone, I crossed the line. I've been involved with the Prime Minister." The Prime Minister followed up with an even more explosive claim. "That's right. We even have a child together. I have a secret remedy that can ensure the baby's safety, but it requires a special ingredient. The blood of a fetus from a pregnant woman whose birth chart is compatible with mine." Just as I was about to step into Lu Ruyan's room with the imperial physician, I heard her voice. My heart sank. Then I heard her clearly recite a set of birth details. They matched mine exactly. I thought such an outrageous demand would never be approved by Ling Xiao. But anxious, I hurried back to my quarters, and before long, Ling Xiao pushed the door open and walked in. "Xiao, you heard it yourself. Ruyan's condition is critical. Only you can save the baby in her womb." Lu Ruyan was the woman Ling Xiao brought back from the border 3 months ago. I first met her the day he returned victorious from the war. That day, I couldn't contain my excitement and rushed to greet him at the city gates. But what I saw instead was this. He sat atop his horse, carefully shielding a delicate, visibly pregnant woman with stunning beauty, someone you couldn't take your eyes off of. They said she was a woman of extraordinary talent, well-versed in ancient and modern knowledge, brilliant beyond compare. A once-in-a-century prodigy. Ling Xiao had nearly died at the border, and it was thanks to her daring sacrifice and clever strategies that he had returned alive. After we came back, he treated her like a treasure, let her live in my courtyard, sleep in my bed. He even rebuilt the residence according to her so-called modern style, giving her the finest living space. While I was moved into a neglected, run-down part of the estate, he expected me to feel no jealousy, to treat her like a sister, and share a husband with her. But my status was lower than even her servants. He completely ignored the 10+ years we had spent together. 2 weeks ago, Lu Ruyan suddenly fell ill. They said it was due to pregnancy complications. Yet no cause could be found. Ling Xiao summoned every famous doctor, but none could cure her. He was so anxious he couldn't sleep at night. Ling Xiao and I grew up together. He was the son of a late emperor. The night the emperor's brother staged a coup, the emperor entrusted him to my father's care. My father risked the execution of our entire family to falsely claim that Ling Xiao was the son of a fallen soldier and adopted him as his own. That's how Ling Xiao rose to the rank of Great General of the South. My father knew of his ambition and paved every step of the way for him. And I loved him deeply. The year I came of age, he knelt before my father and asked to marry me. He promised I would be his only wife and that he would never take a concubine. But who would have thought, only 3 years later, he not only took a concubine, he was even willing to kill my unborn child for the sake of hers. Ling Xiao held a bowl of prepared abortion medicine and forced me to drink it. I clutched my mouth and shook my head desperately, retreating in terror. "Husband, this is your child too. I beg you, don't kill him." But Ling Xiao walked toward me with determination. His cold and ruthless eyes filled me with fear. He grabbed me as I tried to escape and said, "Don't worry. We can have another child. But Ruyan is too frail. She can't wait." Eyes bloodshot, I struggled fiercely, utterly disbelieving. "Ling Xiao, her child counts, but mine doesn't? 18 years of devotion, my father risking our whole family to protect you, means less than the short time you've spent with her." There was a flicker of guilt in Ling Xiao's eyes, but it quickly vanished. He turned cold again. "Ruyan has suffered too much for me. Your health is better than hers. If we lose this child, We can try again. But if Ruyin loses hers, she won't survive. If you love me, how can you bear to watch me lose someone I love?" I burst out laughing, so hard tears streamed from my eyes. Because I loved him, I had to sacrifice my own child, just so another woman's baby could be saved? I said, "She just doesn't want me to give birth to your child. And you're really going to kill your own flesh and blood over such a ridiculous excuse." But Ling Xiao trusted her blindly. "Ruyin has a kind heart. She's never quarreled with you, or tried to compete for my favor. She even tells me to treat you better. She wouldn't have revealed this secret remedy unless it was absolutely necessary. How could you insult her like that? Never quarreled? Never competed for affection? That's because she monopolized his attention night after night. No matter what happened, Ling Xiao always took her side. I was never even given a chance to speak. No matter how I struggled, he forced my jaw open and poured the bitter medicine down my throat. The pain in my abdomen was unbearable. Blood quickly soaked my dress. But it didn't hurt nearly as much as my heart did. After using the blood of my unborn child as the key ingredient, Lu Ruyin made a miraculous recovery. Not long after, she gave birth to a baby girl. Ling Xiao treated the mother and daughter like precious gems. Every time I saw that child, I thought of the baby I lost. It was like knives cutting into my heart. And over the past year, I finally saw just how different Lu Ruyin really was. It was as if she could predict the future, always helping Ling Xiao avoid every risk. His love and trust in her ran deep, bone deep. Any time I had even the slightest argument with her, he blamed me for everything. He even allowed her servants to insult and mistreat me. That's when my heart truly turned to ice. The year Ling Xiao ascended the throne and became emperor, the very first thing he did was banish me to the cold palace. Lu Ruyin came to see me. She lifted my chin and said, "There was never any such thing as a medicinal catalyst. I just didn't want you to give birth to his child, so I made up a reason." Such a vicious woman. Yet Ling Xiao had the nerve to call her kind-hearted. I couldn't understand. If you never wanted me to give birth to his child, then why let him sleep with me in the first place? Why let me conceive? Lu Ruyin smiled. If I didn't, how else could I drive a wedge between you two? How else could I make your father start to resent him? My eyes turned red with hatred. I shouted, "Lu Ruyin, I'll kill you." She laughed softly. "You're no match for me. I'm not even from this world." That's when I realized she was from another realm. A woman who had crossed into this world. She had fallen in love with Ling Xiao. How could she possibly tolerate me? But not long after that night, for reasons unknown, she was suddenly violated and died. Ling Xiao couldn't bear the blow. Just because I had once said in front of her maid that I would kill her, he blamed everything on me. To avenge her, he accused my father of treason and colluding with the enemy. He had my entire Shin family executed. He beat my maid to death right in front of me. In the snow, I knelt before him, begging him to spare my father for the sake of our past. He stomped on my hand with his boot, the pain cutting into my bones, and said, "Does it hurt?" But at that time, Ruyin hurt even more than you. Then he summoned a few of his servants. They surrounded me, planning to completely destroy me. Unable to bear the humiliation, I jumped from the city tower. The moment I fell, I saw Ling Xiao riding madly toward me on his horse, shouting, "Jiao, don't." I just looked at him, eyes filled with hatred, and said, "Ling Xiao, if there's a next life, I'll never love you again." As I finished speaking, I saw a flash of pain cross his face. But all I felt was disgust. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Chun Tao standing before me, red-eyed, trying to say something but hesitating. "Madam, that woman, the baby in her womb." I was still a little dazed. The pain of falling from the tower seemed to linger in my bones. But what was going on now? Then it hit me. I had been reborn. And I had returned to the day Ling Xiao came back victorious and brought Lu Ruyin home. That day, I saw him with a pregnant woman. When I overheard someone say the child was his, I couldn't handle the shock and fainted. I knew what Chun Tao was about to say, so I cut her off. It's true. It is the general's child. Chun Tao didn't expect me to be so calm. She blinked in surprise. How could he treat you like this? You were standing right in front of him. Yes, I had been right there, but he hadn't even looked at me. His eyes were only on Lu Rian. But compared to everything he did to me in my past life, this was nothing. Child's play. I looked at Chun Tao, who had been beaten to death in my previous life. My heart ached. Since heaven had given me another chance at life, this time, I would never again let the people around me die because of him. I said, "It's just taking a concubine, isn't it? If one isn't enough, I'll help him find a dozen more." Chun Tao looked at me in shock, just about to speak. But at that moment, a group of riders galloped toward us in the distance. Our carriage driver tried to steer out of the way, but it was too late. The horses were spooked, and the whole carriage overturned. I was thrown off violently, just as I thought I was going to die. Someone caught me in their arms and, in one swift motion, seated me firmly atop a fierce steed. When I looked back, I was met with a pair of deep, penetrating eyes and a face so stunning it took my breath away. I recognized him. He was the infamous court official everyone wanted dead, so powerful at such a young age that he overshadowed the entire court.
Xie Yan.
In that moment, his strong, elegant arms wrapped tightly around my waist, so tight I could barely breathe. Then, with a flick of his riding whip, he kidnapped me and took me to his estate. Lifting my chin, he smirked and said, "Can you guess whose child your dear husband's concubine is really carrying?" In my past life, it was the same. I had fainted. Our carriage hadn't dodged him in time. He had kidnapped me just like this. When I refused to respond, he pinned me down and kissed me. Then he said to me, "Shinji Yao, if you're willing to be mine, I'll burn his entire general's mansion to the ground for you." By then, Xie Yan had already risen to the post of Grand Chancellor, wielding near absolute power. He was feared and loathed as a wicked and unscrupulous villain. I had been terrified of him. How could I dare respond? Besides, there was history between us. Someone once warned me that Xie Yan's gaze toward me wasn't normal and asked how I felt about him. I had said, "I like men like Ling Xiao. Honest, loyal, courageous, and strategic." Being with someone like Xie Yan, I'd wake from nightmares screaming. And when I turned around, I had walked right into Xie Yan's cold, shadowed face. I always suspected he held a grudge over that and had been waiting to take revenge. I had been terrified of getting involved with him, fearing scandal and ruin. But this time, before I could even reply, his shadow loomed over me, his breath brushing against my skin. Then, without hesitation, he captured my lips with his, pressing me against the wall as he invaded me. I immediately parted my lips.
He was just about to deepen the kiss.
He hadn't expected me to cooperate. He froze, staring at me in disbelief. I said, "What's the matter? Chickening out? Or, do you not know how to kiss? Want me to teach you?" His eyes turned fierce, like he wanted to devour me, but the tips of his ears flushed red, the color slowly rising. I had a bold suspicion in my heart. Could it be this infamous, ruthless Grand Chancellor has never kissed anyone before? I asked, could it be that this is the Chancellor's first time kissing a woman? But before I could finish my sentence, he leaned down and sealed my lips with his again. His long, powerful fingers pinned down my wrists as he kissed me fiercely. His tongue forced its way into my mouth, stealing all my breath, leaving me almost suffocating. It wasn't until I was about to pass out that he finally let me go. Turns out, provoking a man in such matters really is asking for it. When the kiss was over, his whole face was flushed, yet he looked down at me with a blank expression and asked, "Your husband has a child with another woman and you don't care at all?" In my past life, of course I cared. It broke me completely. But now I said, "A man who can't keep it in his pants is like rotten cabbage, too filthy to even toss in a stir-fry. Why should I torment myself over scum? Can't I just find a better one?" His tone sank. "Who do you want to find?" I leaned in close to his ear. "What about you, Chancellor?" His breath grew heavier. Aren't you afraid of me? In my past life, I had feared him deeply. He was dazzlingly handsome, the very embodiment of every woman's dream. But in the court, his methods were brutal, his hands stained with blood. People spoke his name in dread. And I, foolishly in love with Ling Xiao, had always admired his righteousness and bravery. Naturally, I stayed far away from Xie Yan. But it turned out, the man I thought so upright and honorable had treated me 100 times more cruelly than this so-called villain. And when my father was imprisoned, it was Xie Yan, the man I had avoided like the plague, who tried everything he could to save him from his sentence. He even sent word to me, saying that he respected my father for his loyalty and integrity, and even if he had to fake his own death, he would try to keep him alive. But in the end, he couldn't save him. If a man truly loves you, no matter how dark and cold his heart is to others, when he's facing you, it turns soft and gentle. I said, "So, Chancellor, are you not afraid to have an affair with a married woman?" "Afraid of who?" "Ling Xiao," he sneered. "I'll have him tied up and dragged here tomorrow. I'll make love to you right in front of him. Let him hear the whole thing. Truly a vicious man. If he can take what he wants by force, he'll never waste words." But I was curious about one thing. I asked him, "Is it true, as the rumors say, that you're in love with me?" "Why?" I knew I was pretty, but in the capital, beauty was not rare. I had no idea what made him fall for me. "You really want to know?" I nodded. He smirked. "I'll tell you the day you become my wife." Xie Yan quickly sent me back to the general's estate. Originally, he had planned to drag Ling Xiao over immediately, just in case I changed my mind, to let him hear us together. But I thought that was too crude. He said, "Fine. Then tomorrow I'll go to his house and do it in his bed." Even more exciting. With a reputation like his, that kind of plan was exactly what I'd expect. When I returned, people in the courtyard were moving things around. Ling Xiao was holding Lu Ruyan protectively in his arms, terrified she might bump into something. When they saw me, Ling Xiao frowned and asked, "Where did you go?" I didn't answer. I asked instead, "What are you doing here, husband?" Only then did he remember himself. He said, "Ji Yao, this is Lu Ruyan. She's carrying my child. The side courtyard isn't suitable for pregnancy, and her servants aren't careful enough. I've temporarily arranged for her to stay in your courtyard. Your maids will tend to her. Please look after her for me." In my past life, he did the same, let Lu Ruyan live in my courtyard, sleep in my bed. He even reassigned all of my maids to serve her. I hadn't yet recovered from the shock of his betrayal, and then I was met with this scene. I lost control, said things in anger that pierced his heart. He flew into a rage, called me a jealous shrew. But now, I said calmly, "Since you brought her back yourself, naturally her lodging is your responsibility. My courtyard was part of the dowry my father gave me. What right do you have to give it to someone else? Or is the general trying to seize my property for himself?" Lu Ruyan looked as delicate as ever, holding back tears, and reached out to take my hand. "Elder sister, please don't worry. I have no intention of competing for his affection. I'm just not well," and he was being considerate. In my past life, when she said this, I had flung her hand away in fury. She'd used the moment to fake a fall and win Ling Xiao's sympathy. This time I rolled my eyes. "Little Ruyan, you're 2 years older than me. But fine, I don't mind playing the big sister." I looked her up and down, then said, "And I have no objection to the general taking concubines.
Thank you for reminding me.
Since you're already pregnant and can't serve him, one won't be enough. Why not take in a few of your maids as well?" Ling Xiao stared at me in disbelief, clearly stunned that I wasn't upset. In fact, that I was volunteering to add women to his household. His fists clenched tightly at his sides. "You really don't mind me taking concubines?" "Of course not," I replied lightly. "It's about time you added a few more women. And I'm sure kind, understanding Ruyan won't mind either, right?" Lu Ruyan's expression flickered. She forced a smile. "Of course not." But in the very next moment, my gaze turned cold as I looked at Ling Xiao. I don't mind you taking concubines, but I do mind being stepped on, my things being taken, and being humiliated. Is this how you announce to the world that you plan to divorce me? Right now, he still needed my father's support. Of course, he couldn't get rid of me. I I didn't give him a chance to speak. I cut him off. It's late. If you want to divorce me, do it tomorrow. But for now, kindly put everything back where it was. Not a single item out of place. And if the general truly wishes to care for Miss Liu, he should use his own people. The servants in my courtyard are loyal and protective. If anything goes wrong, will the general blame me for being jealous? Or take the blame himself? In the end, Ling Xiao was forced to arrange a new room for Lu Ruyan. A servant's room. Back then, I had been blinded by love, so obsessed with Ling Xiao that whenever I saw how completely he adored Lu Ruyan, it felt like my heart was being ripped apart. I had completely forgotten that I could use my status to put her in her place. The next morning, Lu Ruyan arrived at my chambers right on cue to pay her respects. As she poured tea for me, I slapped her hard across the face. Lu Ruyan was stunned. She glared at me and snapped, "You actually dare hit me?" I hated her to the bone. I said coldly, "So what if I did? I could kill you too." She opened her mouth to speak, but then spotted a figure outside the window. She instantly covered her mouth, about to accuse me. But I swiftly knocked the teacup from her hand, splashing the scalding liquid all over her face. She let out a sharp scream. I screamed too, feigning fright. Right on cue, Ling Xiao kicked open the door. Without even asking what happened, he shoved me aside and shouted, "Shunji Yao, what did you do to Ruyan?" When he saw the blisters forming on her face from the burns, his heart ached. "Get a physician now." Lu Ruyan threw herself into his arms. "General, she tried to kill our baby." I stared at Ling Xiao with tearful, terrified eyes. I just mentioned something about helping you take in a few more concubines, and she suddenly slapped herself. Then she tried to splash the boiling tea on me. If I hadn't dodged, I would have been the one burned. Lu Ruyan was frozen for a moment, her face pale with rage. Clearly you were the one." I cut in, voice full of hurt. "Ruyan, how could you say that about me? If you didn't want me to help the general take more concubines, you could have just said so. Why go so far to frame me?" She stared at me, completely speechless, and could only bury herself in Ling Xiao's chest, whimpering, "General, I didn't." But Ling Xiao didn't even seem to hear her. He just frowned deeply, eyes blazing as he looked at me. "You are really going to bring more women into my household?" I met his eyes, my own rimmed with red. "I've already selected Ruyan and her 3 maids to be your new concubines. Besides that, several noble families have offered their daughters for the position. I agreed yesterday and have begun the selection process. Why don't you ask Ruyan how she feels about that?" The ones I chose were all masters of scheming and inner court drama. So, what if she was clever and well-read? In my past life, the estate had been too peaceful. She hadn't seen these women coming. And the battlefield of jealous women? Far more lethal than any war. Forced into this position, Lu Ruyan could hardly refuse. If the general is taking concubines and Madame has no objections, how could I possibly have any? Ling Xiao was briefly at a loss for words. He didn't even look happy about my offer of concubines. But still, he tried to defend Lu Ruyan. "Ruyan isn't the jealous type." I let out a sharp laugh. "So the general is saying I'm the jealous one? Then let me ask, was it Ruyan who brought the tea just now?" Lu Ruyan nodded. "Yes." "In that case, why did she offer me scalding hot tea? Whether I drank it or she spilled it, I'd be the one blamed. After all, with you here to protect her, how could I possibly come out ahead? What exactly was she trying to do? In my past life, I had spilled just a bit of tea on her arm because it was too hot. She used it to frame me. Ling Xiao believed I was trying to harm her and their child. He had the servants guard me like a criminal, refused to let anyone bring me food unless I apologized. My father, cautious due to Ling Xiao's status, didn't dare confront him. And I had no one to turn to, no place to vent my suffering. This time, Lu Rian couldn't explain herself. The physician soon arrived. Lu Rian's face was blistering badly. The doctor said the burns might leave permanent scars. Later, I heard Lu Rian smashed everything in her room in a fit of rage. Meanwhile, I had already arranged for her 3 maids to be moved into Ling Zhao's quarters. Those 3 had been fiercely loyal to her, and just as vicious. In my past life, aside from Chun Tao, they had even orchestrated the death of another maid close to me. Now that their interests clashed, they'd tear each other apart like wild dogs. Perhaps I moved too quickly, because even with Lu Ruyan injured, Ling Xiao came looking for me. You're really that eager to see me with other women? Zhiyao, do you even love me? Before he could say more, a servant rushed in. General, the Grand Chancellor, he. Before the sentence could be finished, Xia Yan's voice cut in. General Ling already brought another woman into his estate, and he still wants mine? A man who can't even respect himself. Why would I care if she still loves you? Ling Xiao turned toward him, eyes dark. What does the Chancellor mean by this? Xia Yan gave a devilish, devastating smile. That smile alone could bring down a kingdom. He had come with imperial guards, elite fighters from the palace, and they swiftly restrained Ling Xiao. Then, without dismounting, he jumped down, picked me up in his arms, and strode into my chambers. Xia Yan. Ling Xiao must have realized something. His face went pale with rage. What are you doing? Xia Yan replied coldly. Obviously not you. Then he ordered, keep him by the door. Don't let him take a single step. Turning to me, he asked which room belonged to Ling Xiao. He carried me inside and shut the door behind us. Looking down at me, he murmured, I told you, I'd make love to you right in front of him. I suddenly realized, he didn't actually believe I'd choose him. But if there was even the slightest possibility of us, he'd make sure I could never go back to Ling Xiao. I asked, Chancellor, are you afraid? Xia Yan scoffed arrogantly. I fear nothing. I just don't want to wait. Make sure you moan nicely later. But the way his arms held my waist so tight, and the slight tremble in his hands, it felt like he was scared of something, hesitant to move forward. Only his eyes, deep like an abyss, seemed ready to swallow me whole. I wrapped my arms around his waist and kissed him first. The next moment, he tightened his hold, slammed me against the wall, and kissed me with a hunger like he wanted to devour me whole. Our breaths tingled. We melted into each other. Outside the door, Ling Xiao struggled violently, furious beyond reason. Xia Yan, if you touch her, I'll kill you. But all he got in return was Xia Yan pinching me roughly, making me cry out. Ah! The sound was soft, sweet, and breathy. Even I blushed from how sultry it was. Ling Zhao's eyes turned bloodshot. Xia Yan, if you lay a hand on my wife, I'll kill you. Outside the door, Lu Rian seemed to be fanning the flames as well, but I had no time to pay her any mind. Xia Yan said, Xin Zhiyao, now that you've become mine today, I will never let you go again. Yet in the end, Xia Yan didn't go all the way, despite his words. Still, when he carried me out, Ling Zhao's voice had already turned hoarse from shouting. I looked at him, utterly out of control, eyes bloodshot, veins bulging at the corners of his eyes, as he stared at Xia Yan and me. And Lu Ruyan, who stepped forward, clearly preparing to accuse me. But before either of them could speak, I said first, Oh, I nearly forgot to tell the general. While you were away at war for 3 years, I failed to remain chaste. I've already had a secret relationship with the Chancellor. Xia Yan followed up with an even more outrageous blow. Yes, we even have a child. Ling Xiao whipped his head toward him.
So did I.
What child?
How come I didn't know about it?
Xia Yan added. If the general wants to see the child, I can bring him tomorrow. Zhiyao loves me so much. The child looks exactly like me. Ling Xiao was so furious he lost control, struggling like a madman. But Xia Yan's men held him down tightly. Ling Xiao stared at me, eyes blood-filled, and shouted, Zhiyao, you got involved with him? Do you know what kind of man he is? Xia Yan calmly replied, wealthy beyond measure, holding power over the court, owner of countless estates, and, let's be honest, devastatingly handsome. I stared at him, stunned. I hadn't expected him to describe himself so accurately. Even Lu Ruyan looked caught off guard by his shamelessness, but quickly collected herself and cried out, "Shen Ji Yao, the general loves you as his very life. Even while fighting at the front, he missed you so much he fell ill. And you cheated on him while he was away." I turned to Ling Xiao. "Is that true?" Xia Yan grabbed my hand tightly. I patted his hand to soothe him. Ling Xiao said, "It's true." I laughed. "You miss me so much it made you sick, yet somehow you ended up having a child with Lu Ruyan in your grief? And the moment you got back, you let her take over everything I had. Only thing missing was kicking me out of the house. Ling Xiao, don't you think that's a little absurd?" If you feed Lu Ruyan a bowl of abortion medicine, I'll believe you." Ling Xiao stared at me in disbelief. "Ji Yao, how could you be so heartless? That's a life. How could you?" Afraid he might actually go through with it, Xia Yan jumped in immediately. "Yes, Ji Yao, you really shouldn't be so cruel." Then he turned to Ling Xiao. "But since the fetus is so important, please take good care of your concubine, General. As for your wife, I'll take good care of her for you." Ling Xiao snapped out of it and growled through clenched teeth, "I'm still a general. Aren't you afraid of being condemned by the people for this?" Xia Yan curled his lips into a wickedly charming smile. "A conniving chancellor like me? I've done worse than rob women in broad daylight. A little affair? You think I'd care about what people say?" Ling Xiao filed a complaint and brought the case before the emperor. He knelt in the great hall. "Just one night without me, and he looked gaunt and worn. Your Majesty, I wish to accuse Chancellor Xia of forcing himself upon my wife." Unfortunately, our emperor was a degenerate more interested in wine and women than governance. It was Xia Yan who had helped him seize the throne and kept the empire stable. Even the imperial memos were mostly handled by Xia Yan. Every day, at least 80 to 100 impeachment reports were submitted against Xia Yan. The emperor looked at him and asked, "Xia Aiqing, is this true?" Xia Yan bowed. "Your Majesty, General Ling brought home a pregnant concubine after returning from war and has since humiliated Ji Yao repeatedly. She asked to end the marriage, but he refused. I merely saved her from her misery." "You." Ling Xiao was so outraged by the blatant distortion of truth that he almost coughed up blood. "Silence," the emperor snapped. "You're in the imperial court, no shouting. General Ling, is what Chancellor Xia said true?" Ling Xiao clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Your Majesty, Ji Yao and I have loved each other since childhood. Chancellor Xia not only forced her, he also. The emperor perked up, clearly intrigued, sipping his tea. "He also what?" Xia Yan calmly said, "I made love to her right in front of him, and told him we even have a child."
Uffed.
The emperor spit his tea everywhere and quickly wiped his mouth. "That juicy? Next time bring me along. Wait, when did you two have a child?" Xia Yan didn't even blink. "An illegitimate child. Best kept quiet." "Ah, fair point," the emperor nodded. Then he turned to me. "And what does Lady Shen have to say?" Thinking I was still the love-struck fool of the past, Ling Xiao seized the chance and quickly said, "Ji Yao, if you leave him, I'll let go of everything. If you don't like Rian, I'll send her to the far courtyard. She'll never appear before you again." I found it laughable. In my past life, I loved him so deeply, yet for Lu Ruyan, he had my entire family executed. No matter how I begged, he never softened. He even sent people to humiliate me. And now, in this life, when I'm the one who walked away, he acts like he loves me enough to endure this kind of humiliation? Tears welled in my eyes as I spoke. "Your Majesty, it's true that the general and I once loved each other. He also promised to make me his only wife. But upon his return from war, not only did he let a concubine trample me, he favored and shielded her as she poisoned me and seized my dowry. If this marriage isn't dissolved, it's entirely possible I'll one day lose my life in his household." The emperor had always been a sucker for a pretty, weeping woman. Seeing my tears, he hurriedly said, "Oh, my dear lady, ahem, Lady Shin, please don't cry. Xia Aiching, what are you standing there for? Wipe her tears." Xia Yan dutifully helped me dry my tears. Ling Xiao couldn't take it anymore. "Your Majesty, I am still her husband." The emperor's face turned cold. "General Ling, even I know, if you truly loved someone, how could you let her watch you sleep with another woman and even bear her child? If you're going to be a scumbag, don't make us scumbags look bad. We, the scumbag kind, know how to take responsibility and let go. Sleep with 100 women and never let one cling to you. If Chancellor Xie likes her, then just give her to him." Ling Xiao never imagined the emperor would be this shameless, actually saying such things. "Your Majesty." The emperor raised a hand to his forehead. "Oh, dear, I feel faint." At that moment, Eunuch Li stepped up and whispered to him, "Your Majesty, concubine Qin says she's arranged something stimulating for your Majesty." The emperor's eyes lit up. "Well then, that's settled. General Ling, you may withdraw." Ling Xiao refused to give up. "Your Majesty." "Enough," the emperor barked. "General Ling, are you defying a direct order?" Ling Xiao had no choice but to retreat. After Ling Xiao retreated, the emperor couldn't help but ask, "Xia Aiching, was it really that thrilling?" Xia Yan replied, "Your Majesty, has there ever been anything in my life that wasn't thrilling?" "Clearly not." The emperor waved a hand. Got it, got it. You're dismissed." After leaving the palace, Xia Yan accompanied me to take inventory of the dowry my father had given me. Ling Xiao tried to speak to me, but Xia Yan kept a very close watch, as if afraid we'd interact again. I teased, "Chancellor, are you lacking confidence in yourself?" Xia Yan's ears turned slightly red as he admitted, "In front of you, yes, I don't have much confidence." Then he smiled faintly. "You don't know the way you used to look at him, like there was no one else in the world who could compare." I paused for a moment. Xia Yan looked away and added, "Besides, I don't have a good reputation. It's true I've taken many lives." I asked curiously, "Since you know your reputation is so terrible, why do you still act so wildly?" After all, he was best known for being cold-blooded and fond of cruel punishments. Xia Yan snorted. "The ones I killed deserved it. Besides, I risked my life to climb to a place of power. If I don't walk boldly and take what's mine, how could I live up to what I've sacrificed?" Oddly enough, I found his reasoning perfectly valid. Before I could respond, he pulled me into his arms and held me tightly. "But Yaoer," he said, "you're not allowed to despise me. Every ounce of insecurity I have in this life has been spent on you. I had once heard that the more you love someone, the more humble you become, reduced to dust. I never imagined that someone like Xie Yan could feel inferior, because though he was a notorious villain, he was also a brilliant one. He became chancellor before the age of 20, and now, at only 23, he held power over the entire court. Even if the world hated him, no one could deny his cunning and talent. And from what I knew, despite his poor reputation at court, the people had lived better lives during his tenure." I said, "But I don't even know why you love me." Xia Yan held me for a long time, then gave a bitter laugh and said, "You probably don't remember. When I was 10, I was nearly beaten to death by soldiers. You were passing by, and you saved me." Xia Yan came from a humble background, and his childhood was filled with hardship. Back then, I had been a child myself, too young to understand anything. But he had remembered it all this time. He continued, "Actually, when you said you liked Ling Xiao, I was holding property deeds, planning to confess my feelings." He was referring to the time I said that just being near him would give me nightmares, and he had overheard. I never imagined he'd been planning to confess that very moment. I hugged him tightly. That won't happen again. That night, I had a dream. In it, I was back in the cold palace from my past life, and Xia Yan came to rescue me. He had overheard everything Lu Ruyan had said to me. He had her executed. Just as he was about to take me away, guards outside noticed something, and he had no choice but to retreat the way he came. And when I jumped off the tower that day, I had only seen Ling Xiao with my own eyes, but in the dream, I saw Xia Yan. I woke up with a start, my heart pounding. In my past life, I'd always wondered who had killed Lu Ruyan. I had even suspected she faked her death, just to destroy me completely. Now, I wasn't sure if the dream had been real, or just my mind playing tricks. But I clearly remembered, on several occasions in the cold palace, someone had saved me at the last moment. And I remembered that day, when the guard shouted, "Who's there?" Now, I had returned to the Shen family estate. Because of the imperial edict, my divorce from Ling Xiao was official and irreversible. Ling Xiao knelt outside the Shen residence. My father was furious, but given Ling Xiao's status, he couldn't say much. And besides, he was displeased about my involvement with Xia Yan. He thought Xia Yan's reputation was too unsavory, and that it would ruin mine as well. So I told him everything from my past life. He frowned. "Is what you're saying true?" I said firmly, "Every word. If father doesn't believe me, just watch how Lu Ruyan deals with any other concubines." I was certain, if Lu Ruyan truly loved Ling Xiao, there was no way she would tolerate competition. If she didn't try to use a fetus's blood as medicine on me, she would have found someone else. Besides, even if not that, I had other ways to prove it. Sure enough, Lu Ruyan didn't disappoint me. Not long after, she brought up the need for a medicinal catalyst. My father believed me completely. From that day on, he severed all ties with Ling Xiao. And perhaps because of our separation, something shifted. Ling Xiao no longer favored Lu Ruyan as he once had. He even blamed her for the fallout between us. Eventually, during an argument between them, he lost control and accidentally caused the death of their child. I found it darkly funny. In the last life, he blamed me. In this one, he blamed her. Maybe this was just the nature of imperial men. One of Lu Ruyan's former maids, hoping to rise to the position of primary wife, used her miscarriage to disfigure her completely. Lu Ruyan, of course, wasn't willing to give up, so she sent people after me. But now I had my father, and I had Xia Yan. Without Ling Xiao to back her, she had no power to borrow. She became nothing more than a casualty of inner court warfare. In the end, Xia Yan had her demoted to a prostitute and assigned people to watch her, until she was tortured to death. As for Ling Xiao, in my past life, Lu Ruyan once told me he was fated to become emperor. But in this life, I'd never allow that to happen. Soon after, folk songs began to circulate, claiming Ling Xiao had the face of a destined ruler. Though the emperor was debauched and lazy, he still wanted to keep his throne and continue living his carefree life. Of course, his mind was full of schemes. He immediately had someone frame Ling Xiao and ask Xia Yan to send something to his estate. The next day, evidence of treason was brought before the court. The emperor flew into a rage. "You, General Ling, I treated you with such favor, and this is how you repay me with treason." Ling Xiao had clearly not been well. He had lost weight and looked deathly pale. He dropped to his knees with a loud thud. "Your Majesty, I swear, I've been framed. None of that evidence belongs to me." The emperor slammed the table, still denying it. "And those songs, do you think they started themselves? Guards, take him to the death prison." After Ling Xiao was thrown into the death prison, that was Xia Yan's domain. Even if he didn't die, he wouldn't come out whole. In prison, Ling Xiao refused to confess unless he could see me one last time. This time, Xia Yan was surprisingly generous. He took me there himself. When I saw Ling Xiao, I nearly threw up. I sneered, "You look disgusting, covered in filth and crawling with flies, and you still have the nerve to ask to see me?" Ling Xiao stiffened for a moment, staring at me in a daze. "Zhiyao, you love me. What you have with Xia Yan, it's all fake, isn't it?" Xia Yan couldn't stand to hear another word. He covered my eyes with his hand and gave the order. The branding iron seared into Ling Xiao's skin. The pain nearly made him pass out. I watched with a cold smile. Love him? I only wished he could live in suffering every single day. Love him? I spat. Ling Xiao, you really are shameless. Love you? You should go look in a mirror and see what kind of sickening state you're in. Just talking to you makes me want to vomit. He stared at me in disbelief. But you said you loved me. But the woman who once loved him with all her heart had already been tortured to death by his own hand. I smiled. You're not worthy. Xie Yan didn't let me stay long. Soon he took me away. On the day Ling Xiao died, Xie Yan formally proposed to my father, delivering chest after chest of gold, silver, and jewels to the Shun residents. My father, a man of unwavering integrity his whole life, cursed him for being a corrupt official. He trembled with rage. I gave my father an idea. Didn't you say the army is short on rations? Just ask him for it whenever you need. My father glared at me. Do I look like that kind of man? But after pacing a few rounds, he grumbled about the servants being blind. Why hasn't anyone started counting the gold? What if something goes missing? Still, he refused to say yes. Xie Yan knelt outside the Shun residence for 3 days and 3 nights. The rumors exploded. No one at court could believe that the all-powerful chancellor, second only to the emperor, would actually humble himself like this, kneeling for 3 full days just to marry me, when he could have settled everything with a single imperial edict. My father asked me, in the last life, did he really fight for you like that? I nodded. He did. Father glanced at the piles of treasure in a room, then remembered the soldiers with no food. He waved his hand angrily. That little bastard, he really is no good. Fine, fine. Then he added quickly, but it's not because of the money. I smiled. I know. On the day Xie Yan and I were married, he sent an 8-carriage bridal procession to bring me home in full splendor. That day, as he carried me into the manor, he held me close and whispered, Ji Yao, my reputation is terrible. Being with me, I've made you suffer. I didn't know what the future would hold, but in that moment I was happy. Later, after spending more time with him, I gradually came to understand. He wasn't just the scheming villain I once believed him to be. He had grand ambitions but came from humble beginnings. He cared deeply for the people and once wanted to be a good official. But in the treacherous, cutthroat world of court politics, every step was a fight to the death. Ironically, it was the evil ministers like him who could accomplish far more than those labeled loyal and good. Sometimes killing one person could save an entire city. And what I never expected was, in this life, he truly treated me like his most precious treasure. Never once did he let me suffer even the slightest grievance. Just as he had promised my father on the day of our wedding, in his study. I cannot guarantee that being with me will bring her a life free of hardship. But what I can promise is, so long as I live, anything she wishes for, I will walk through fire to make it happen. And anything she does not, I will walk through fire to keep it from her. The end.